My Ko-Fi supporters see my videos early. If you'd like to join and support me, the link is in the description. A mega base deserves a mega mall, and so do I, because I'll probably be here for a year if I wanted to handcraft it all. Up until this point, I've been using crappy buildings, stone furnaces, yellow belts, yellow inserters, tier 1 assemblers, the works. But I think it's about time to upgrade to less crappy, but still not entirely mega base worthy, buildings. Between episodes, I did some work, clearing out this massive area for the mall, killing a ton of biters, and setting up new resource patches, including connecting a closer iron patch to the blue science setup, which frees this one right next to the mall for us to use. I've left the big iron belt still, because I'm going to use half of it to transport 2 belts of coal I need for the mall up here. A quick note on biters. With the increasing size of nests as I expand outwards, and the ever-growing presence of blue biters defending them, clearing nests is becoming a painful job. I could just build a perimeter like a normal person, but I had a more devilish idea. What if we made a stealth megabase? This would consist of putting efficiency modules in absolutely everything, and switching our power over to either solar or nuclear, which, if we do it right, could result in the final megabase actually producing less pollution than our base as it is now. Of course, without speed modules, the base would be absolutely massive, but that's what we're all here for, right? In an effort to actually get shit done today, I had myself this little checklist of stuff I needed to automate to make my megabase into a reality. I should note now that although I'm saying the word megabase because it sounds good, it's actually only going to be a 480 science per minute base, so I suppose it should be called a 480 kilo base? Megabase is a bad name anyway. Mega meaning million suggests that it's a million science per minute, when the mega actually refers to the temperature of your CPU trying to run it. Anyway, whilst I've been rambling, here's all of our solid resources ready to be processed. My first part of call is green circuits, and then a mini mall to expedite the construction of the mega mall. It does actually, however, contain the assemblers for miners and blue assemblers, so there's 2 items off the list. I said we had all of our solid resources, but we were of course missing out on everyone's favourite dinosaur juice. Here you can see my partaking in my favourite activity ever, setting up oil patches. I then process the oil, and most importantly, get lubricant set up. It's always the best part of a game, because as soon as you see the green liquid flowing, you know bots will not be far behind. It's time for red circuits, followed closely behind by engines before we get around to another item off the checklist, efficiency modules. At this point, I was thinking that I would be using productivity modules as well as efficiency, but later on down the line, I will end up turning these productivity module assemblers into efficiency module assemblers as well. I'll quickly run through the next couple, as to not bore you. We build rails, a load of train related stuff, all types of yellow and red belts, robot frames ready for both types of robots once we finish researching them, electric furnaces, and I set up assemblers for roboports and stack inserters, ready for their respective researches finishing. I set up power poles, and finally solar panels and accumulators, which we will be using to power the base. According to Kirk McDonald's fantastic Factorio calculator, my base will need 450 megawatts of power, assuming I put efficiency modules in everything that will take them, which is equivalent to over 10,000 solar panels, so we want them producing as soon as. Whilst I wait for construction bots to finish researching, I head out to set up some mining to make my life easier. For now, I'm only building the miners themselves. I'll leave the rails and collection until I've decided on my train system for this run. Once construction bots are available, I instantly set up this system to top up the network to 400 bots, but once we start building properly, I will quickly increase this value. I spend some time setting up chunk-aligned rails whilst personal roboports research. Initially I intended to have 4 personal roboports, but of course a mere 5 solar panels can't keep up with that, so I end up using 2 and filling the remaining space with more solar panels. With my new robot army, I set off to make a start on the rail system. I begin with this massive railroad serving as the spine of my central base. All of my smelting is going to be around this area, as well as probably some high volume materials. You can see the extent of it as I run down it here. Whilst I'm waiting for substations to research, I start designing solar arrays, ready for when they finish. The ideal ratio of solar panels to accumulators is 25 to 21, so I'm trying to get it close, but I'm not too stressed about getting it bang on. Despite that, I end up with this almost perfectly ratioed build, having only 0.8 too many accumulators, and I waste no time copying it down to give the bots some work to do. I decide that for fun, I'm going to try to fit smelting stacks into the tiny gap between these two railways. Fun in the same way, of course, trapping your fingers in a car door is. It's only really entertaining for other people. I, with no thought at all, make the decision to have 1 to 3 trains in this base. If there is a good reason for it, that isn't why I decided for it to be this way. I discover that 3 red belts of smelting can fit into this space, which is in all honesty surprisingly good. I quickly build the furnaces all out and then fill them up with efficiency modules before turning to the loading and unloading. We can just about, with some generous use of underground belts, extricate the resources from the unloading station into the inputs of the smelters. Getting the resources out on the other side is much simpler. The stone supply for the mall runs right through where I want to build my smelters, so I decide to run it through the gap between this set of smelting stacks and the next. Once I get the stone line out of the way, I can copy the smelters up here. So here is the finished module, providing 6 red belts of smelting. Now for our 480 kilo base, we need, well, let's see. Right, yeah. 14 of these. Fucking teen. It's a good job it's so tiny and there's all this space. So I copy another one down, but quickly realise that there's not enough hours in a lifetime to build something this big out of my inventory and personal robo-parts. So I connect up the robot network to it and let the swarm of construction bots chip away. After about an hour of land filling, belt rerouting and travelling through thick forest, I get all 14 modules blueprinted down. It's so big, some of it hasn't even been revealed by radar yet, though I promise there is blueprints there. Here's some footage of me driving through it to truly express the scale of this setup. Even with hundreds of construction bots and the entire mall at my disposal, this is likely to take hours, but in return it will be enough smelting to get us through to the rocket launch. I recorded setting up this iron outpost, but whilst the smelting setup gets built, I am going to do some work off camera to build outposts and clear biters, so we will return once that is finished. It was a while before I turned back on the recording. I didn't actually spend 10 hours, some of it was AFK time warping to get some key researches, but the furnaces are done, our base now runs exclusively on solar power, the biters are pushed back, although it will be difficult to push them back any further, and most importantly, I am ready and raring to get some actual trains going. I'm using Project Cybersyn for trains, so the first thing we need to set up is a depot for them all. I think 64 trains is a good starting point, so I build the depot to hold that many, as well as setting up rocket fuel to keep them fueled. I start to let some loose onto the system, which is as simple as setting them to automatic and sending them to a depot, from which Cybersyn will handle the rest. So far, these are the only mines connected up, which is nowhere near enough for the final base, but will be good enough for now to get some resources into the system. We can see here the first of many train deliveries to the furnace stacks, although it isn't as satisfying as it could have been, due to the stack inserters not quite yet being able to keep up with a red belt. So, we have iron, copper and steel now. I suppose all that's left is to find something to do with it. An obvious first step would be red science. Once we get the first 2 sciences set up, we'll be able to get rid of the big setup in the middle of the base, saving us space and pollution. The actual resource requirements for red science are minuscule, less than a red belt of each, so I didn't need to put much consideration into the actual building of the thing. Here's what it looks like in the end, and it is incredibly broken, as those of you with a keen eye will be able to see. I won't notice for a while, however, as our trains are too busy shoveling iron into the steel smelters to bother bringing any over here. There was some biter nests to the north, a bit too close to an iron and oil patch I wanted, so I head up to dispatch them. This also serves as an opportunity to show off my new method of destroying nests, as the turret creep was sucking away my soul. If you have, like me, never used poison capsules, you will be surprised to find out that they don't actually kill nests. So I use them to kill the worms and soften up biters, before using a combination of rockets and defender capsules to kill the nests. The day that I graced these biters' village was the worst of their lives, but for me, it was Tuesday. With my bloodlust mostly satiated and a newfound clarity of mind, I returned to my red science setup and found that I absolutely wanked it up. Now, I could, and perhaps should, just rip this bottom bit down and redo it, but I instead go with this slightly jank but entirely functional solution, and just resolve to never look at the thing again. In lieu of any proper oil outposts, I set up this simple little station that draws extra oil from the mall if we want to use any, though there are a few easy to access oil patches I can hook up, given I can be bothered to do it. I then decide to set up green science, which again, due to its low resource requirements, doesn't need a particularly well designed train station, so I shove it into this little space here. You've seen this all before, except this time it's blue, so I won't dwell on it too much. Now it's time to set up train stations to drop all this science off to the labs. The lab setup itself cannot handle 6 different science packs, but we're going to build 6 stations anyway, because when we build out the final lab setup, we can just build it where this one was. I get the first 2 stations connected up to their respective inputs, and with that, a third of the final science production is finished. And that's where we are now. I've put a lot of hours in and brought us to this liminal point in the run, barely crossing the threshold into the final stages of the game. Next time, we're going to finish what we started here and completely replace our old base with this new one, as well as likely getting started on some new stuff. Until then, thank you for watching and I hope you enjoyed. Special thanks to my Ko-Fi supporters, Zakakakwak, R1 Smells, Dick Dastardly Enthusiast, Scovey, Mockafet, Moon Runes, Thomas, Shrunk Hoovy, Dr. Ducklumps, Preston Cole, Das Tom, Bartio, Leo, Sukares, The Fiendish, Stocky, Pubic Tuft, and Nathan14321.